So this is chapter 15. And this chapter is titled The Forbidden Forest. So it's an interesting chapter. It's another one of those kind of like the last chapter where it doesn't really happen exactly the way that it does in the book, which is fun. So we've got some new characters. These new characters, finally some like actually new characters. And
I mean, for this book,
none of them are people.
Sorta.
Yeah, not really.
Sorta.
They're creatures. None of them are like Homo sapiens, is what I'm trying to say.
Sorta.
We have, well, I don't know. Up for debate. We have unicorns. How fantastic. Finally, well, not finally, but some magical creatures. We have werewolves, but it's not an actual, we don't sight the werewolf, we hear it. And then we have creatures. Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember. I feel like they thought they heard a werewolf just because they're so sure there's werewolves in there, but I didn't know they heard one.
Well, in the, I guess this could be a book versus movie moment already, but in the movie they do hear it in the distance. In the book, they discuss the existence of werewolves in the forest.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because as we will get into the chapter, people are big old about the forest.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So then we also get to meet centaurs. So I'm trying to think how far back centaurs go, like mythologically speaking, in Greek mythology, in other mythology. Anyway.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. We get to meet Ronan, Bane, and Ferenz. Those are 3 centaurs. And then we also get to meet a hooded figure. Very exciting.
Can we talk about how the centaurs, one's got black hair and is like dark, and one's got red hair and is like a rusty color, and one is like blonde and like a palomino?
Yeah.
Just the diversity in centaurs. I just love that. I just loved, because you know how descriptive she is in the books when she describes stuff, and I just loved, like, they're so strikingly different, each one.
Right.
Even though there's totally a herd of them.
As are the humans.
Yeah. So I liked that the 3 that we met were so strikingly different.
Yes, they are. I mean, centaurs, if you don't know what a centaur is, if this is your first time hearing this term, it is a very interesting half body of a human and half body of a horse. They always have, like, imagine a person attached to the back of a horse, from the spine down of a horse, in a sense, right? They have tails like a horse would have, like any kind of, like, they're quadrupeds, but they have the ability to speak. They have superhuman intelligence, or like, they basically, what we learn about centaurs in this chapter is that they are very, very connected to the cosmos. Their main I guess magical prowess. Well, one of them is that they are very astrologically astute and they are connected to the cosmos in that they read the sky and they
and the stars and the planets and the
that's all the stuff in the sky.
Well, but I mean, like, they'll read the stars and that'll tell them one thing, and they'll read the planets and that'll tell them something else, and they'll
and it's never anything that's immediate. It is always foretelling of the future, and it's not ever like necessarily the immediate future. So that's a centaur.
And for those who do know what centaurs are, go Centaurs. Those were my kids' high school mascot.
All right,
Go Culver.
Okay. Go Culver. Should we get into it now?
Yeah. You are up for the, although you did bring up all kinds of questions I had not thought about.
Okay.
Because all the centaurs we see are male. And so when you were describing it, and I was going to say a man in a horse's body, because we only see male centaurs, but then it made me wonder, do female centaurs exist? And if not, where the hell do centaurs come from? Like recreation wise, not like, you know what I mean?
I get I get I'm hip to the I'm hip to the innuendo. I was thinking about in the future we will come across centaurs much more, but even in those moments, we never hear discussion of female centaurs.
And I didn't realize it until you were describing the body and you were trying to think of the best way to say it. And when you said a person, and I was like, but wait, like literally, we've only seen men.
If you just saw a dark shadow, that was like some bird or something outside. I did see it. I'm trying to picture a pregnant centaur. Like, should there be a female? Where?
Well, I would have to assume that it would have to be more on the horse side, because the human person doesn't appear to have human reproductive organs or anything like that. Like the body, they're like down to the belly button and then they become horse.
Yeah, they're like Ken. They're like Ken in the front. Yeah.
But not really, because literally from the belly button down, they're a horse. So it's like what a horse looks like from the front. You see their little chest or whatever, their underbelly. And then it goes backwards into the horse's feet and tail. And I would assume, not because we looked at it or anything like that, but because we're talking about literally female centaurs and whether or not they exist, I would assume they have horse genitalia, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. But what's interesting also is that you just said, like, you just triggered something where I said that they were quadrupeds, which is true, but they also have arms.
They do. They do have arms. They have the human body from the head down to the belly button. And then where your V line would be, it turns into a horse, and that's the front two legs. And then there's a horse sticking out of its ass with two more legs. Out of its backside. I always make myself have to edit.
Interesting.
Not on purpose. Right. Anyway, sorry, my brain took us into a tangent.
As always. That's what we're here for. These are our typical conversations, guys. Like, literally, these are the things. This is why we did the podcast, because we're like, this is what we discuss already, generally. And this is how they go.
And every single time we read the books, we find something new. Like this. It never occurred to me in the other 7 times I've read the books to question whether or not there are female centaurs or how centaurs procreate.
Mm. Stay curious, people. Stay curious.
The magic is out there.
So, the story, this chapter anyway, begins with, we left off. Let's see, we're kind of doing this now, right?
They came down the stairs.
Well,
after
Malfoy had just gotten detention from McGonagall. And they were so excited, right? And then they send off Norbert, thankfully, for the good of everyone. And then they're coming down the stairs, and with so much elation and light weightedness, the heaviness of the days already gone, they kind of forgot the invisibility cloak at the top of the tallest tower, at the top of the astronomy tower. And they come downstairs, and lo and behold, there's Filch. And Filch is like, fun, you're getting detention. So, unfortunately, he takes them to McGonagall, and Professor McGonagall is like, are you kidding me right now? What just happened tonight? How is it that, and mind you, these kids are all first years, right? They're all
11 years old.
Yeah. None of the older kids, we don't see any of the older kids getting in this much trouble. And here they are, causing a riot.
Ain't even been here a full year yet.
Professor McGonagall is completely beside herself, where she's just like, okay, I've got Malfoy here from Slytherin House, and then Neville, and Hermione, and Harry. And then
wait, you got to explain to the people where Neville came from.
Well, I'm about to. The funny thing is that after I said that, I'm like, wait a minute. How come she didn't wonder where Ron was? But anyway.
Well, remember, Ron had been in the hospital wing.
Yeah, I know. And so this is like the only time that he's not involved in the situation.
Not because he didn't want to be, though. He totally would have been there, but he was in the hospital.
Yeah. So why is Neville with them? This is insane.
When they come down, they run into Filch, and Filch is like taking them to McGonagall, and then Neville comes running up, and he's like, Harry, I was trying to find you guys because Malfoy, and they're like,
yeah. He's like, he knew that Malfoy was up to no good, trying to get them in trouble on purpose because he had the letter from Charlie saying that his friends were going to pick up the dragon in the astronomy tower. So Neville was trying to warn them.
Neville's like, Malfoy's telling everybody you guys are running around with the dragon. He's trying to get you guys in trouble.
And McGonagall is like, I can't believe that you fed Neville this story about a dragon and whatnot.
Cock and bull story, I believe, is what she said.
Absolutely. It was a cock
I just thought that really needed to be in there because McGonagall is fucking steaming, pissing mad.
Yeah, she is.
In her bathrobe, no less.
When she says that, Neville's face is like, he's so sad. He's so disappointed. He's hurt. And that part hurts me the most because he's so innocent and he's so sweet. And I'm like, oh, not Neville.
And his intentions were so good. I'm going to go out. I know I'm not supposed to go out, but I'm going to go out because poor Harry and Hermione, I have to save them. Poor Neville.
And so each lose 50 points each in points. So Gryffindor in one fell swoop loses 150 points, which, woo, Harry was upset. Everyone was like, at first, everyone was confused the next morning when they passed by the points, the hourglass points.
They're like, how did we lose 150 points overnight?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden the story starts getting spread around, and everyone that is not Slytherin is fuming at the great Harry Potter, previously the savior of the Quidditch game, is now public enemy number one. And the Slytherins are all congratulating Harry, like, thanks, man, good job, because they're about to win the House Cup.
I was going to say, explain why the other two houses are mad.
Slytherin's about to win the House Cup, and people are sick and tired of seeing Slytherin win. And they're just like really frustrated with everybody, right? They're really frustrated, particularly with Harry and his seemingly usual antics now.
Can I also point out a connection I just realized? The 150 points they lost are the 150 points Harry just got catching the snitch at the last game. Because when you catch the snitch, you get 150 points.
Yep. Which means that they were close. Well, or at the same time, Draco also lost 50 for his house. So that means that Slytherin was ahead, and then they must have been 100 points ahead or more, and then that way, when Harry lost their points, and then when he didn't. Okay. Yeah, so I would imagine that Slytherin had to have been, they had to have been very close anyway. And then now it's like a lost cause, basically. And everyone is very upset with Harry. And then the worst part for me, that night, they go back to their dormitories, and mind you, the Gryffindor boys, there are 5 of them that all share a room. Neville, Seamus, Dean,
Ron, right? And Harry. The first year's 5 of them.
Neville is crying into his pillow at night because he feels betrayed, and Harry can't tell him otherwise. He couldn't tell him otherwise that, it was true. But yeah, that's really sad. That makes me sad that Neville was so sad. So
it's such a bigger deal than that. Because literally, like, they're the only ones who are nice to poor Neville. Like, remember when he hopped all the way up from the library with his legs bound together, and they took care of him and told him that he was worth 12 of Malfoy, and he even jumped in and fought Crabbe and Goyle because, well, this is what we're doing, knowing he was going to get smashed. Like,
and the fact that
poor Neville.
Like, I forsake my feelings about leaving the common room in the middle of the night, and he went to purposely try to, save Harry or whatever, feeling like he was doing the right thing as a friend, and he's, felt so betrayed in this way.
He is so devastated, and got friggin' detention on top of it, and lost 50 points to the house. Poor Neville. He's so broken.
So at this point in time, Harry also is kind of feeling the weight of all of this, of losing all the points, of all the other houses being upset at him and Slytherin being happy, thankful for him, that he decides not to meddle anymore. He tries to resolve himself not to meddle in things anymore, not to care about what's under the trap door, not to care about Fluffy or anything else. That lasted like 5 seconds.
Well, a couple days.
Yeah. So it was the week before. It was like the week before exams, and they're studying and whatnot. And Harry overhears Quirrell, and he's like, "No, not again, no!" And then, please. And then he's like pleading, and he's, I don't know, fighting, it seems, with someone, like kind of arguing in a sense. And then he just says, okay, like giving in. And then he walks out of the room that Harry's, like, I guess, behind the door. And then he sees as he walks out, he like fixes his turban and walks away. And Harry's thinking, well, who's he talking to? Is he talking to Snape? Did he finally tell Snape how to get past whatever his particular enchantment was? And he looks in and the room's empty. But all right. So he's like, no, I'm not meddling. But oh well, that kind of lasted not that long. So then he tells Harry and Hermione, he tells Ron and Hermione, and they're like, well, go to Dumbledore. Just tell Dumbledore so that Dumbledore can deal with it, right? But they don't have any proof of anything. It's all just like what they've heard or what they've tried to piece together. And they're like, let's just leave it. Let's just leave it alone. And they get letters, these wonderful letters from Professor McGonagall, telling them that they are to serve their detention, finally. What does the letter say? It's very simple.
Mm-hmm. But also very interesting.
Ah, yes. So they get letters at breakfast, Harry, Hermione, and Neville. And it says, your detention will take place at 11 o'clock tonight. Meet Mr. Filch in the entrance hall. Professor McGonagall. How come 11-year-olds are serving detention at 11 o'clock at night?
For the discretion of being out of bed after hours.
I know that there is no note anywhere of math class at Hogwarts, but 2 + 2 does not equal 4 in this case here.
No, maybe it was a since you guys want to be up and running around at night. But still very odd that 11 p.m. is the detention time.
Yep. So they have to serve their detention at 11, and Filch takes them. So they meet Filch, and then he takes them to where they are going to do their detention. And their detention is with Hagrid in the Forbidden Forest.
What's the name of it? The what forest?
The Forbidden Forest.
So it's forbidden and it's after 11 p.m.
Yes.
Okay.
The rule at the very beginning of this book, when they first get to Hogwarts, is that
the forest is forbidden?
Yes, that you are not to go in the forest, especially
at night? After 11 p.m.?
And then, so Filch leaves them with Hagrid, and he's like, I'll be back at dawn.
For what's left of them.
So this tells us that they're going to be out from 11 p.m. until like 5 a.m. So all night in the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid. This is some crazy detention. And so this is where they discuss the possibility of running into werewolves and whatnot, because Draco is being a little pansy. And he is saying that, like, this is, what did he say? This was house in the book and in the movie. It's different.
Servant stuff. In the book, he said servant stuff.
In the movie, he says servant stuff.
Okay. Because in the book, he says, this is servant stuff. His father's going to hear about this. Why wouldn't they just be writing lines or something like that? And Hagrid's like, what good is writing lines? Your father will tell you this is how detention is done at Hogwarts.
Yep. Yeah. And then also he's super worried about running into werewolves because, you know, werewolves.
And Hagrid's like, there's nothing in the forest that'll hurt you as long as you're with me. But he's got this big giant crossbow and Fang.
I know, right? Oh, but he very clearly states that Fang is a big baby.
Well, not until Draco says, fine then, I'm taking the dog. And Hagrid's like, okay, but he's a big old coward.
Oh, and can we just talk about how Filch is really sad as he's walking them to detention? He's really sad that they let the old punishments die out.
Yeah, he still polishes his chains, his shackles down in his office.
Because they would hang you by your wrists from the ceiling for a few days.
Days?
Days. It says for a few days.
Jesus.
How old is Filch? What days were these?
I have no idea, but that man is angry.
I wonder if this happened to the likes of their parents.
It's possible. But then how long, also, like, how old is he? How long has he been there? Because he has the chains. He's like, I still have them, and I polish them just in case they're going to let us use them. And
Yeah.
Filch is a weirdo. He shouldn't be at a school with children.
Yeah. I do.
But then, too, Snape literally bullies 11-year-olds, so.
I guess that's the only place where he can feel comfortable imposing his power. Anyway, so they discuss that they could potentially run into werewolves or other creatures. So, but as long as they're with Hagrid, everything should be fine.
Or Fang.
And then he proceeds to split them up.
Which is why I had to point out, Hagrid says, as long as you're with me or Fang, there's nothing in the forest that will hurt you.
And the best part is that the first group was Neville and Malfoy with Fang. And then Harry with Hermione and Hagrid. Wow.
Hagrid should have known that was a terrible split to begin with.
Yeah. So Hagrid tells them exactly the purpose for them being in the forest that night. He says that they're going to help him try to find a unicorn. They're looking for a unicorn that has been injured. And he explains that unicorns are typically very difficult to catch. But this seems to be a young unicorn that's been hurt, and he proceeds to show them a silvery substance, like a kind of viscous substance that he then tells them is unicorn blood.
Silvery blue.
Yes, silvery blue substance that is
It's like
blood, what they're looking for.
I feel like in the movie it kind of looked like mercury.
Yeah.
Like silvery blue, but like the consistency or the look of it was like mercury, like inside of a thermometer.
Yes. Yeah. Or if you're kind of not smart sometimes like me, you played with mercury as a child. But
wasn't that you weren't smart. Somebody obviously didn't tell you.
Yeah, that's true. I was very, very young.
You were a child.
But actually, it's okay. I looked it up, and it doesn't. You don't really get mercury poisoning like in 2 seconds from playing with it, and it doesn't typically seep through your skin so much as we once imagined. You'd like in order to really get like mercury poisoning, you'd have to consume it, and in a different way than just even downing. Anyway, another tangent. So they go off and they start looking for them. And he also explains to send off red sparks if you are in trouble or if you need help or whatever. If you come across the unicorn, whatever, any reason, send up red sparks and they can all reconvene. And they go off and they're like, on their own with their little groups. And of course, red sparks. And Hagrid and Hermione and Harry are like, oh, the other team shot off red sparks. We've got to go. And so they run over there thinking, oh my gosh, they found the unicorn, or oh my gosh, they're in trouble, or oh my gosh, something.
No, Hagrid put them behind a tree and told them to wait. And he ran. Because they had a conversation while they were standing there where Harry was like, I really hope Neville's okay because it's our fault he's even out here.
That's so sad. But he was okay. Kind of.
Oh, yeah, he was. He was fine. He was.
Draco was being a weenie, though. Of course. Draco decided to scare him. Yes, shock.
Are you enjoying the false surprise? The fake shock?
Oh, yes. Big shock.
The little green douche.
Of course, Draco decides to play a prank on Neville. And of course, Neville is scared. And so, of course, Neville decides to shoot up red sparks because he was scared. And that's what called Hagrid over to him. And then, so Hagrid's like, okay, great. Well, there's a lot of commotion now. There's no way we're going to find anything in the forest now. They all come back together and then they switch teams again. Instead, Hagrid's like, well, Harry, you've got a little more backbone than Neville. Let's stick you with Draco. You won't be so easy to scare. And so there they go, Fang, Draco.
I would also like to point out that what Hagrid actually said, because you're very calm. Hagrid was pissed. So he's like, all right, we're switching teams. Hermione and Neville, you're coming with me. And he's like, Harry, wait, what did he say? Harry and Fang, you go with this idiot. He called him this idiot because that's how mad he was. And then he whispered to Harry, sorry. He's like, but you're not going to scare as easily as Neville. And Harry's like, yeah, all right, that makes sense. So.
And
so now they head off again in different directions.
Well, and he also noticed that, like, there's definitely something in the forest that should not be there.
Right.
There's definitely something in the forest that is beyond werewolves or anything else. And then they come across Ronan. And Ronan, well, Hermione is just like, oh, wow, what are you? And it's Ronan, the first of the centaurs. And he asks, like, hey, Ronan, do you know of anything weird going on in the forest? And Ronan looks up and says, Mars is looking very bright tonight. And, Hagrid's like, oh, all right. And then, and then he's like, but do you notice anything funny in the forest? And then he goes, yeah, the first victims are always the innocent ones, right? And it's like, well, all right, well, you have a good night. We'll catch up another time.
Ready, stargazers.
Ready, stargazers. Yeah. So Bane and Ronan are of no help. They meet the second centaur as well at that time. They're good for nothing in Hagrid's eyes because
what is Bane's answer to the question?
Bane's answer to the question, isn't it also that the Mars is
looking very bright tonight?
Yeah. It doesn't matter whatever he asks. It's always the same answer, that Mars is looking very bright tonight.
I think we can deduce Mars looks pretty bright that night.
And that apparently has a very important significance to
some kind of meaning.
Yeah. So they go off, and all of a sudden, Draco and Harry see something. They see a hooded figure. And this hooded figure, the moment, so Harry saw it, he said, look, he stops Malfoy from getting any closer because there was like that substance, white, silvery substance gleaming on the ground. And the unicorn is there, the blood is there. They found the unicorn. And Harry had never seen anything so beautiful and sad. Because obviously it's a unicorn, which is very beautiful, but it's dead, right? And he looks beyond the unicorn and he sees the hooded figure there with the unicorn. And all of a sudden, as it happens many times to Harry, his scar bursts in pain, right? Just starts burning. And Draco runs away.
Not before he screams. He screams first. This guy doesn't know how to be incognito in the goddamn forest. He screams and runs, and Fang bolts after him because we already said Fang's a coward. So
again, very typical things that happen throughout the Harry Potter series. Harry's scar bursts in pain, just shoots up with pain. Malfoy screams and runs away. All right. Then,
well, it's because the scream is what gets the hooded figure's attention.
Yes, that's true. And then, basically, his scar's on fire, and then he hears hooves, but the unicorn's dead. So here comes another centaur. In this case, it's Ferenz that comes. And it is Ferenz, yeah.
Yeah.
He says
the hooded figure's coming toward Harry, but he's like in pain and can't really do anything. And all of a sudden, the hooves.
And they're like, oh, you're the Potter boy. I know you. You should get back to Hagrid because the forest is not a safe place, especially for you. And he says, can you ride? It'll be quicker this way. And he lets him hop on his back to give him a ride back. And literally when this happens, Ronan and Bane come and they ask him, what are you, just like a common mule? Like you're letting humans use you like this?
There's a human on your back.
Yeah. But I mean, they're very proud creatures, and this is not how things work, right? Like humans don't ride centaurs. And they send it back off to Hagrid, and they talk, and they're like, you should not be here. Unicorn blood. So he tells them what a unicorn's blood is for, right? They basically tell him that unicorn blood it will keep you alive, even if you are an inch from death, right? But at a cost. What's the cost?
You'll be cursed for the rest of your life because a unicorn is such an innocent and beautiful being that to kill one, just like it leaves a mark.
Right. And then
now they don't explain it like that, but it's like karma. Essentially, you killed something super innocent to save yourself, so you will basically be cursed for the rest of your life.
Yes, because it's so monstrous to slay such an innocent creature, such a beautiful creature, that you basically are condemning yourself. And then Harry is like, but who would be so desperate? Who would want to?
Who would do that?
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, I get it. It's Voldemort. And he's trying to stay awake, trying to stay alive until he can get his hands on the Sorcerer's Stone. Because the Sorcerer's Stone is in the castle. So,
and it makes the elixir of life.
Right. So putting all that together, he's like, I just ran into Voldemort in the forest. Like, I just came face to face with my would-be murderer, with the man who murdered my parents and tried to kill me. Right?
Also, news alert, people, Voldemort's in the forest.
He's back, or he never left, or something. We don't know.
But he's here.
Yeah, we just know he's here. We know that he is drinking unicorn blood to stay alive, and we know that putting two together, he is after the Sorcerer's Stone, which provides the elixir of life. Dun, dun, dun. And now they come back together. And of course, Harry immediately tells Ron and Hermione all of these things. Well, not immediately, but they try to tell Ron everything. They have to. Did they wake him up? Yeah.
Yeah, he was sleeping in the common room when they got back.
And then they tell him everything. And they're like, we were wrong. Snape doesn't want the stone for himself. Snape wants the stone for Voldemort.
Who's waiting in the forest?
And Ron's like, please stop saying his name. Please, please. because saying Voldemort's name is not something that we do in the magical world. Everybody just calls him he who must not be named.
Or you know who.
Yes, or you know who. Which is also why Christina says that. Well, many people say that about the author of the book.
She who must not be named.
Yes. If you don't know what we're talking about, just traverse the internet and you'll see.
If you don't know what we're talking about, we fully and wholeheartedly and 100% support the LGBTQIA community. And we have an issue with anybody who outwardly says horrible things about them. So, she who must not be named. Yes, we're allies here. Hope that doesn't lose us viewers, but if it does, I guess we weren't for you.
Yeah, absolutely. If this, why? I mean, I guess there are people out there that just feel that way.
Remind me to tell you a story when we get off air that happened during my work hours last week.
Last week, okay. But yeah, so hopefully if you're still here, you're with us. And
we are allies, people. We are, and we are not ashamed of it.
That's right. We're here for all.
Some of our most fun friends are gay.
Back to the summary. We're almost done.
Sorry.
Tangies. That's another reason we're here.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. So then basically, so they say that Dumbledore is the only one that Voldemort has ever had an issue with. The only one that Voldemort has never been able to, that he was afraid of, right? Harry, Hermione says, Harry, everyone says that Dumbledore was the only one you know who was ever afraid of. If Dumbledore's around, right, then you'll be fine. And then when Harry gets back upstairs, he has his invisibility cloak again on his bed waiting for him. And there's a little note that said, just in case. Somebody's looking out for Harry. I don't know who, but somebody.
That invisibility cloak keeps showing up. Apparently he needs to have it.
Yeah.
All right. And that's where the summary where the chapter ends. The invisibility cloak is back in Harry's bed with a note that says, just in case. And now we know that Voldemort is in the forest. Bum, bum, bum. We already did some of it, but book versus movie.